and this is Luis, and I am Luis's physical therapist today. So he's going to be doing an Astrand test to estimate his VO2 max using submaximal ranges. So Luis has been warming up for about 3 minutes at 50 RPM and 25 watts, which is the minimal resistance for this bike. So I'm now going to increase his wattage to 100 watts and have him maintain an RPM of 50 for 2 minutes. So we'll increase this here. Alright, and then this is the number you're watching, so just keep that right at 50. So. Alright, so before we began the test, Luis sat for 5 minutes and we took his resting vitals. So his heart rate was 84 beats per minute, his blood pressure was 118/78, and his RPE, which is the perceived rate of exertion, was at a 6. So his RPE is an estimation based on his breathing and his muscle fatigue. So throughout the test, we'll have him look at the chart and tell us how hard he's working. So we also determined that Luis is at a low risk for cardiovascular disease because he's a physically fit and conditioned male, 27 years old, no history of cardiovascular disease in his family or any other risk factors. So we also properly fit him for the bike, and you do that by measuring, having him stand next to the bike and measure the seat next to his greater trochanter, so that doesn't put any stress on the joints. So how are you feeling so far?
Good.
Good? Alright, so in about a minute we're going to take his resting vitals. So what we're going to look at is his heart rate, his blood pressure, and his RPE. And what we want to see is we want to see that his heart rate is within his submaximal range. And we calculated that using the equation, which is 208 minus 0.7 times his age. And that gives us what his maximal heart rate is. And to give him in the submax range, we want it to be between 60 and 85% of that. So for Luis, it's going to be between 113 and 160 beats per minute. And then we just want to make sure that his blood pressure is staying constant. So, alright, so we're going to take these measurements now. Alright, if I can just have you rest your arm here, so we keep it nice and steady. That down. Okay, now I'm going to take your pulse. Alright, so like we said, your submax range is 113 to 160, and your heart rate was 120, and blood pressure was 135/82, so that's a good range. So if you can look at the scale and look at the numbers, where would you say you are?
10.
10? Okay, perfect. Alright, so we're going to have you keep pedaling at this 100 watts until you've been at this workload for 5 minutes. So at minute 5, which is about a minute and a half from now, we're going to check your heart rate and RPE again. So you're doing a good job keeping those RPEs maybe a little lower so that we're staying at that same workload. So we want the effort to be steady. So are you feeling okay?
Yes.
Yep, okay. So you are free to stop the test at any time if you feel you need to. So throughout the test, I'm monitoring Luis for any signs that we should stop the test. looking for visible symptoms that could include shortness of breath, wheezing, cold, clammy skin. I'm also keeping track of his blood pressure to make sure there's no excessive increases in systolic and diastolic pressures, and also looking at that heart rate. And we're using the heart rate not only for the VO2 max calculations, but also to make sure we don't see any rapid increases or a failure of his heart rate to rise with an increased workload. So those would all be reasons that we would potentially want to stop the test. But we're doing good, you're feeling good? All right. We're just getting all that turkey dinner off from Thanksgiving. So, okay, so we're at 5 minutes. So I'm gonna check your heart rate one more time. All right. So your heart rate is at 125, which is still within your submax range. If you could tell me what your RPE then is too.
11.
11. Okay. Great. That would be consistent. So, and then at minute 6, so in just a little bit, we're going to take your heart rate and RPE one more time. And what we want to see is we want these measurements to be within 5 beats of each other. So we want it to be steady. So, all right. So we're going to do that now. Okay, so, all right, so at this time your heart rate was 128, so we're within that 5 beats. Then on the scale, what would you say your perceived exertion is?
12.
12? Okay, perfect. So, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to have you cool down. So we're going to bring the resistance back down. I'm going to have you cool down for about 2 to 3 minutes. And once he's done, we're going to take his heart rate, blood pressure, and RPE one more time, just to make sure that we're recovering well. So, all right, and you're done.